Hello and welcome back to TNWKS, the Now We Know show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learnt something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Zak.
And I'm Buzz, and this week we're travelling back 600 years into English history to May the 4th, 1471, and the War of the Roses, the Battle of Tewkesbury.
If you enjoy the Now We Know show podcast, support Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon or join our members on YouTube for early access, ad-free content and exclusive episodes. So to add some context to this podcast, we didn't actually time travel back to the Battle of Tewkesbury. We attended Tewkesbury Medieval Festival.
Which is a reenactment of the Battle of Tewkesbury.
True.
Which was the decisive battle in the English Civil War known as the War of the Roses between two warring households. We have the Lancastrians, or the House of Lancaster, and the House of York, or the Yorkists. And it was this particular battle which was the decisive one that saw the Lancastrians defeated and the Yorkists take the seat to the crown of England.
So we weren't part of the public in this particular festival. We were actually part of the reenactors contingent to go and fight.
Exactly. Now, I think for those listening in the States, I think you call these Renaissance fairs, maybe? I don't know. But
Yeah.
I think if you're wondering what we're talking about when we use the word reenactment, then if you're used to the familiar term of Renaissance fair, then that's kind of, which I think covers quite a broad spectrum in the States. But basically what you're doing is you dress in the period clothes and you reenact the history of whatever event you're at. So it would be Vikings, Anglo-Saxons, Normans, and on this occasion it was the Battle of Tewkesbury, which is the culmination of a series of War of the Roses battles that happened during the early summer in the UK. And the event itself is held actually right in the heart, you could say, of Tewkesbury itself. It's right on the edge. We've probably been going to Tewkesbury and being involved in this major event for a good 23 years.
Yeah, I think something like that.
You literally grew up as a child.
Oh, that's right.
I mean,
yes.
there's the amount of different period costumes I've had to make you over the years.
As I've just kept growing and growing and growing.
Yes, year on year, because, I mean, obviously, to put the listeners into perspective, we do a lot of Dark Age stuff as well with the Vikings and everything. But we also like doing the later medieval period events.
Oh, especially Tewkesbury.
Especially Tewkesbury, and right up to the Jacobean period, where we do the English country backswording, a little bit of Civil War sort of type of stuff. But focusing mainly on this medieval period, the battle itself used to be held at a place called Gups Hill Manor, which is just to the edge of Tewkesbury. And now, since I think it was 2003, they got permission to bring it closer to the centre of Tewkesbury and actually onto the Bloody Meadow and the actual battlefield areas where the actual battle was fought 600 years ago.
Wow, that's really cool.
And for the battle, for the general public, you have the events where they do a fantastic schools day on the Thursday, inviting school children around to learn all about the history, etc. And then the event for us really starts on the Friday, where we arrive and all our troops arrive and fellow reenactors arrive and set up camp. And then there's a battle at the Abbey. There's a little skirmish behind the Abbey because in the time of the War of the Roses at Tewkesbury, when the Lancastrians were routed, a lot of them ran to the Abbey for sanctuary, and it didn't happen because I think they basically went and slaughtered them in the Abbey, which was quite a big no-no at the time. So, and then there's some beheadings outside the Abbey, which you've attended. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you have the main battle. And
that's really the big crowd pleaser, isn't it?
That's the big crowd pleaser, but there's also a huge medieval market there.
Yes.
One inn these days, over the years, is kind of a bit new age. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the majority...
We used to have like some carnival attractions and things sometimes, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, back in the days, we've had some fantastic fire twirlers and all sorts of
We had
things.
some jesters this year.
Jesters. In fact, Jester, that's one of the costumes I remember that I made you back in the day.
Oh, when I was a wee nipper.
Yeah, you were at the Battle of the Tewkesbury here as this little mini Jester.
Yeah, I think I can just about recall that. Because...
I don't know if I can find your photograph, but I'll see if I can find a photograph.
Well, I'm sure I'll put it up somewhere.
But there was the thing. So we'll go through kind of what it's like to be a reenactor and at the Battle of Tewkesbury. But one of the things that stands out for me as you growing up within the reenactment community, you learn from an early age how to fight with weapons and how to do unarmed combat, and you've done obviously not just reenactment, but you've done martial arts over the years, and you're a martial arts instructor yourself. But that was the thing as a young man growing up, because of insurance purposes. Back in the day, it was always when you get to 14, you'll be able to go on the battlefield.
Hey!
And then you were literally getting to 14, and then they said, no, you can't go on the battlefield unless you're 16. It's like,
And then 70.
And then it's 17.
And 80.
And then I think it's finished at 18 now, but thankfully that's a while ago now for you.
Thankfully, yes.
It was a bit of a bone of contention at the time.
Well, I think I did manage to get on the field to do archery and maybe some of the water-bearing stuff and non-combatant stuff.
That's the other thing. They do have the archers there, which we'll cover. And on the smaller battles, when we went off to other places, like Anglesey or Carlisle and Caldecott and Tintagel, places like that, Slaughterбridge, doing all these other different events. They tended to be a little bit more flexible.
Yeah, a bit more lenient.
Yeah, but because
obviously they knew you.
Yeah, know me, yes.
And by extension, kind of knew that they could trust me to.
Because you're my son, that's right. But the Battle of Tewkesbury, it's just such a big event. I think in the major years, we've had up to about 2,000 fighters on the field. Wow. For those people listening, if you can imagine, you've got two opposing armies, 1,000 armour-clad, knights in armour and foot soldiers and men at arms, plus the two ranks of archers. It's a huge battle. And then you have back in the actual time period, the gunpowder had just started to be introduced into warfare, so you got rudimentary cannons and rudimentary sort of musket guns, which again they still have today within the battle itself.
What's the terminology you have to say just before you shoot a cannon?
Do you want to say that one?
Have a care!
Yeah, have a care.
But this year, blooming heck, they don't really shout it very loud, do they? Yeah. It's more like, boom! Have a care.
Especially if you're near to the cannons.
Say it after the fact.
Yeah, near to the cannons, and then bam, these cannons are going off, and there's all the wadding, which they put in the cannons flying everywhere. Big plumes of smoke, and then the marshals are saying, okay, if you come across any smouldering wadding as you're charging across the field, can you please stamp it out, because we don't want to have a wildfire.
To be honest, the cannons and stuff are a really big crowd pleaser, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that kind of adds to it. We have, because of Tewkesbury, there's been more horses. We had one horse on the field today, but we've had more than, we've had several horses on the field over the years. But it's that eclectic mix of what the public get to see when it comes to the actual main battle. Because you've got all the foot soldiers, you've got the pike block, the pike blocks, pole arms, all the bill hooks and
testing your weaponry now.
Yeah, pole axes, and even a gentleman there this year with his pitchfork. Which was
that was really cool. Now that's the one thing I remember seeing that several times on the battlefield.
Loads of glaives.
Yes.
Dragon tongue glaives.
Gotta love a glaive.
Gotta love a dragon tongue.
But I don't remember ever seeing one of those pitchforks ready for sale at the market at all.
Yeah, well, it could have been a custom build one.
Maybe it's one of those more lucrative items.
But so you have you have all these blocks of either people using pole arms or people using swords of bucklers, swords of shields. There's a big weapons variant there on the field for people to watch. But then you have the cannons, and then you have the horses, and then you have the archers.
Yes.
You see. And for many, many, many years, we've always, when we first started. When you were just a wee nipper and you had to stand on the sidelines, we used to go in there on the Saturday and join with the Yorkists and then on the Sunday we'd go on with the Lancastrians. So we would sort of like go 50,
Bounce
50, bounce between the two, which I think is a good way of doing it. But then over the years we became very familiar with a really good friend of ours, Jim Sizer, who plays the part of, or used to, he retired last year, plays the part of Lord Hastings. And so we, because we're really good friends, we've known him for years, we've sort of, for many years now, probably about 15 years, we've been Lord Hastings' kind of personal retinue.
Yes.
So we're always at the muster with the Hastings banner. We'd usually find somebody who'd be the banner man to take the banner on and to go with all the banners to meet the king, and when they're having their argument, and then that kind of changed this year, didn't it?
Yeah, that was kind of unexpected, because until the last minute we were going to do what we always did, and then it was the sudden change, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think that sort of threw me out on the Saturday with the battle, because we went down to the muster, and so listeners, you've got to think, you've got the battlefield, you've got thousands of the general public.
I think it was about 8,000 watching this year.
Nice. 8,000 members of the general public that are there waiting for the battle, for the troops to march onto the battlefield. And this is a big field, because it's got to accommodate, it's hundreds and hundreds of combatants. And so we all have to muster sort of hidden away off on another field area where the plastic camp is. And for those people who don't know what I mean by plastic camp, again, the whole event is spread over several different pitches, different fields, and there's a period encampment. Well, there's several period encampments
all over the place.
For those people that don't want to take all the period kit and spend the weekend basically doing what we call living history, then you can go on the plastic camp, where you basically have all the modern camping gear.
And you can kind of keep yourselves to yourselves.
Yeah, keep yourself to yourselves. It's a nice atmosphere.
We're there for the fight.
Well, that's it. That's one of the things. Over the years, we've done so much living history, and that's great fun, because you spend the whole of your time engaging with the public and explaining, arts and crafts and how life would have been in a certain period, and showing them all sorts of different things. But once in a while, it's nice to just turn up to an event and say, well, all I'm doing is
here to have fun.
It's here to have fun and go and have a good scrap. So we're all mustering, and that usually takes a bit of a time. You could be there for about half an hour.
So our listeners that are unfamiliar with the term mustering, that is basically
that's
when
where all the troops gather
troops gather together into
to their banners.
Yes.
Okay, so you've got all the Lancastrian, House of Lancaster, and all their different houses in there, and obviously our house was the House of Hastings, so we would muster at the Hastings banner. And then this year, as I say, we got a new Hastings, and he had his own little retinue.
Yeah.
And so we turned up, and it's like, oh, well.
Hang on, correction there. You say little.
Yep.
When we actually came up against them, because we were on the side of Lancaster this year.
Well, I was going to jump to that, yeah.
There were so many of them.
Well, that's the thing. So
disproportionate fighting. Oh my god!
When we turned up to muster, then we got told, well, no, we don't want you this year. Go over to the Lancastrians.
Oh no!
Go away. Shoo! You scruffy, slightly rusty, old war
Well, that was the thing. We always kind of think of ourselves as more of mercenaries.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Because we kind of act as if we've cobbled together our armour and
men at arms.
Stuff like
that. That's the true nature of it. I mean, you get obviously people will take medieval documentation and artwork and things to get a good idea of what the period clothes were, what the when it's battles, what the period armour was, and obviously go to actual remaining artefacts from that period, looking at the armour and the arms and everything, and they want to be, understandably, 100% authentic, and so do we. To the best part, we're there with our authentic boots or shoes on, our hose. Well, you won't see the shirts because they're under the gambesons, but you've got padded gambeson, you've got period correct armour, helmets and everything else, because of course with Tewkesbury it was a bit looser back in the day when it was first starting out, and you had people that were Vikings turn up with Viking helmets, and that's very quickly got stamped on. No, you can't turn up with Viking helmets, you've got to have the correct period salays and etc. So from our perspective, we're your rebels, we are your basically men for hire, and York has always paid us well to do that. Well, we don't get paid anything, but who cares? And we're men at arms. We fight. We enjoy the fight. We enjoy that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And when you beat your opponents, then you can strip them of their armour, and you say, "Oh, well, I'm going to have an upgrade. That's a better
sell, keep, whatever."
Yeah, that's a better bit of armour. I'll have
Part
that.
exchange.
Exactly. So all our armour is kind of cobbled together compared to those that are like picture perfect, highly polished, who kind of
too shiny.
By day, I mean no disrespect, but by day they might be a postman, but at Tewkesbury they are Lord Farquhar or something in there.
I'm not sure that's historically accurate.
I have no idea. But in their highly polished full suit of armour and all their wonderful clothes that look like they have never been, had a day's work done in them at all. Because they're so perfect, whereas we're walking around, our shirts
rusty.
Our shirts are stained with rust and sweat and actually blood on occasions because of you get injuries, and our hose have got holes in and they got stains, tatters on the knees when you're kneeling down, and the boots are worn, and we kind of just look like we've stepped out of that period. That's the look I like. I don't like the ultra shiny.
It's weathered.
Yeah,
a weathered look.
The weathered look. But saying that, so we were down there at the muster, and then we got short shrift and moved over to the Lancastrians, which I don't mind because
that was a new experience for me because
you've never actually fought Lancastrian where I have.
I have now.
And I've got my mate BJ over there who we're always fighting against.
Yes.
We're always fighting him, and he's always fighting us, and he always loves it because he says he gets a really good fight off us. And this time we sort of like, "Hey, where were you?" And he's going, "Oh, excellent." And I'm looking left.
I think he was pleased.
Yeah,
I think he was pleased.
Because we're looking left and we're looking right. And again, I think we got, on the Saturday, I think we had 30 people. So you've got, as I say...
I think that might have been an overestimate.
You've got hundreds of people on that battlefield. And there's our block, which is basically the House of Devon. Okay, so we've got, Lord Devon there. And there's 30 of us. At the push, and we're facing across we've marched on, which is the far has to be the far side of the field, so we get the furthest walk, we go all the way over there, muster behind our archers, which are outnumbering us anyway.
That's a bit sad, actually.
I'll come to the archery bit in a minute. But then we look across the field when our opposing forces, the House of Hastings, is there, and they're like 2 to 3 ranks deep.
Yeah, and they've just it's just ranks upon ranks of these pole arms, and I'm like, what the heck are we supposed to do?
Yeah, that's it. I was there. I purposely took my pole arm on there, and I asked you to do the same.
Yeah.
And so there I was with my trusty bill hook.
Yeah.
You went on with a glaive.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking down the line, and there's a couple of bardouche.
That was day one.
Yeah.
Day one. We got one extra pole arm on day two.
That's
but that's no comparison to the fact that we've got literally ranks of people with these pole arms, and you can only do the best you can to pin them down. But we really had nobody to really back up the pinning.
They got their bill blocks on the other
side. It's like you pin somebody down, then you're immobilised so somebody stabs you.
Because normally you work with your sword brother either side. So if you've got a pole arm, you're usually fighting 3 people. You've got the person in front of you and a person to each side of them, because if they turn to fight somebody that's next to you, then you can usually give them a shunt in the ribs.
Yeah, especially when they break the lines.
Exactly. So
like some press forward, whilst others kind of stay back.
So with the pole arms, they'll poke and they'll try and hook, they'll try and pin down, and then they might turn their pole arm sideways and do a rush into the ranks to try and sort of close people down. Some of them will carry, and I used to do this years ago, I don't bother so much now, but they'll carry a dagger in the back hand, so then when they come in close, they can try stabbing you with a dagger.
How kind.
But so we were outnumbered on the bill blocks totally. And
we did our best.
If we jumped to the Sunday, on the Sunday was better because we were actually asked on the Sunday to muster with our traditional Hastings, and that was great. And then we were there. We were then asked if we wanted to volunteer to go over to the Lancastrians rather than being whiffled over there. So
I think it was a polite. You can't really say no to it.
I think it was. Well, I think it was a polite apology for the day before for sort of like giving a short shrift after so many years of like being right there with Hastings, and that felt a lot better. And then we had so half of our contingent went over. Okay.
Then we had even less people.
And then we were standing in, and we got on the field.
It was the pole arms. They wanted the pole arms on that side.
So I'm standing there, and we had the one extra pole arm, which was
That's a poleaxe.
Poleaxe, that's it. So we had a couple of bardouche, which for those people who don't know what bardouche, Google it.
Somebody had a Danax, I think.
Well, it was like a Danish battle axe, long-handled battle axe. The bardouche are kind of like a polearm with a curved sickle-shaped axe head on. So I look left. This is Sunday.
Yeah.
So there's about 30 of us on the Saturday, and I look left. Look, I counted. I think we had 16 people on the Sunday, and still we're facing off like
facing like it's like 4-5 to 1. It was like completely disproportionate.
I know it was very much a kind of 300 moment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You wanted to shout out, "This is Sparta,
Lancaster. What is your profession? Oh,
oh, oh, oh!" Because it's like, but unfortunately we don't have all the shields to make a.
But thankfully, after the first couple of engagements, we did manage to kind of get the rest of it.
We had some where the term turncoat comes in. We had some turncoats that actually
defectors,
defected. So we had the first couple of clashes, and then when we came for a clash, they defected over to our side, which kind of swelled the ranks a bit, which was appreciated, and that was pretty cool. But the fighting was great.
Didn't get any pole arms though.
No, we didn't get any extra pole arm. But what I want to come back to is when you're there, you march onto the field, and you've got the drumming as well.
Yeah.
And
it's very, very atmospheric.
Yeah, the cannons starting to do something.
If it's something you can get into, then it's
before we get onto the field, the archers are on there, and the archers are loosing at each other.
Yeah. Now these are not real. Well, they are real arrows.
Everything's real,
but they're not obviously tipped.
Yeah. I mean, so again, for those people that aren't familiar with English or British reenactment, we use period correct weapons. They're all obviously steel weapons, or obviously if it's a polearm, it's got an ash shaft on it and stuff. But they're all shaped as they should be. They're all tempered steel, but they're just blunt. Okay, they have a kind of a term we call 5p rounded, which no tips need to be any bigger than an English 5p piece for safety. But I know that in a lot of other countries, I think they put, I've seen places where they literally put like tennis balls and things on things to stop it because of insurance.
Yeah.
Okay,
I can see that.
But so we're fighting with proper steel weapons. They are blunt, but serious injuries can occur. That's why you have to be.
I mean, they have.
Oh, they have, but you have to be proficient at what you do to try and avoid that. And with the archery, so you've got all the longbowmen there. Sometimes you get the odd crossbow as well with the quarrels. I know one year there was a really nice disabled chap who, do you remember the guy? They had a wooden cart.
I think this was one of the years where I was actually watching.
Yeah, and they had a little wooden cart, bless him. So he got him out of his wheelchair, put him in the wooden cart, and wheeled him on there with the archers so he could loose with his crossbow, which I thought that was brilliant. I mean, what a great thing to do. The flu arrows have much bigger fletchings on them to slow them down. But they're all still traditionally made. The only difference is they have a rubber tip on the end. But this isn't like a rubber tip you think on the kind of like Nerf arrow tips. Like big block. It's actually quite. They call it a safety tip, but it's
actually quite pokey.
It's probably but much bigger than a large rubber you'd stick on the end of a pencil. But and when they hit you, they do pack a punch. Because
that's when it's helpful to have armour on.
I mean, the water bearers can sometimes get hit, so you get the water bearers on there, and they're usually not necessarily wearing gambesons. They've got to go on there with a steel helmet at least, which they might disguise under a straw hat or something. But they get hit by the arrows.
There was this one time when I was
at band camp,
a banner bearer.
Oh yes,
and it was when we were on the other field, because I think the field that we actually fought on this year was flooded at the time.
Oh yeah, that time when literally
it was a very wet year.
Yeah,
and the arrows were actually sticking out of the ground.
That's right.
That was really cool.
We had to switch over to a field very close to the Authentic Living History encampment, which was basically a very, very flat school field.
Yeah.
So it's like this perfectly flat field instead of the normal battlefield we're on, which is all lumpy and bumpy. And there's a big trench halfway across, isn't there?
Yeah.
Where we are, I don't think it's down the front of the field, but where we are, we have to go down this dip. And so you're quite right. All the arrows were sticking in, which when you are then going into a charge, you've got all these arrows.
You don't want to fall over on that.
Sticking up at 45-degree angles. I remember that year.
It was awesome.
But generally, do you remember what they said at the commanders' meeting? How many arrows that they use on a daily basis?
Oh, it was a few thousand, I think.
I think it was a couple of thousand arrows.
Yeah.
So they make all these arrows, and so that's why.
And they're not cheap to make.
No,
they did make a big point about it.
Yeah,
Funny, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
But
because the thing is if I can kind of like paint the picture for the listeners, you start off when you're on the field. You've got the blocks of archers are in front of the actual army itself. Mm-hmm. And they're loosing at each other. So you've got these hundreds of arrows going. And then they collect all the arrows up and take them back.
They're shooting it back and forth, basically, aren't they?
Then the archers drop back behind the lines, and so that then we can march forward and then start to engage with the opposition. But while we're engaging, and when we fall back or they fall back, then the archers start volleying, loosing out arrows in volleys, and then the call goes up, have a care. And of course, at that point, keep your head down because they'll be bouncing off the helmet.
And that's the thing. That's basically, because we were usually on the far end, that's where we kind of situate ourselves.
That's because I love it. It gives you a real sense of mortality. They can't have the archers close to the public because it's way too dangerous. But because we're at the further side of the field, where you've got all these hundreds of archers loosing arrows, when we're having them bouncing off us, which they inevitably do, you kind of suddenly think...
They always hit the one place you haven't got armour.
Well, thankfully this year I only got hit by one, and that actually, because I've got this chest plate on, that just bounced off of my steel chest plate. But in previous years, I've been hit straight on top of the foot, and then you got period leather boots on. No protection, and you just think to yourself, actually, that would have gone straight through my foot and stuck me to the floor. Yeah. So
good luck fighting now.
Good luck fighting now. And it kind of, you think to yourself, you could be a kid, you can grow up, you can learn to use weapons, and you can then go and be called into the defence of the crown and fight in wars and be a real skilled fighter. But you get hit by an arrow in the wrong place.
That's it.
It's not like, what was it, that film with Liam Neeson? Kingdom, I think. One with Orlando Bloom.
Kingdom of Heaven, where when Liam Neeson said, I fought for 2 days with an arrow through my left testicle. Yeah. Good luck with that.
It's a good line, but
I think that might get affected.
Yeah, I don't think that necessarily is a good idea.
So would you say that your instance of being shot in the foot...
Yeah, that made me realise how...
Was that your most painful thing that happened to you?
Oh, gosh, over the years, I don't know. I mean, I've come off there. I've had all sorts of... I think clashes of helmets are a great one, even though you've got a padded coif underneath your helmet. I've had the ridge of my helmet come down on my nose and split the top of my nose open, so I'm there. And I did get hit in the face by a sword. Actually, I think it was that one you were saying about when we shifted fields. Yeah. And I think somebody's sword got flipped up. It wasn't their fault, so no fault. But it hit me in the face, split my lip, and I'm literally pouring blood out my lip. Blood all over my gauntlets. And it's like the image of...
Blood rage.
If you remember Blackadder, the first series of Blackadder with Rowan Atkinson, when Brian Blessed comes back from the Crusades.
I'm Brian Blessed!
And he's just covered in blood. And I was thinking, yeah, this is really realistic at this point, But yeah.
For me, it's probably, again, I was talking about being a banner bearer. Again, on that particular field when it was very wet and the arrows were sticking out of the ground, I got shot in the face. It managed an arrow. Like, it was obviously blocked by the actual banner itself as it came towards me, and it just came in between my black sallet at the time and the bever.
Oh, right. So you had your Archer sallet on.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And it managed to just
get in there.
And I was like, damn.
I mean, that's why it's really important that if you hear "have a care," don't look up and go, "Ooh, pretty arrows."
I mean, they are quite pretty. You just want to look to see if they blot out the sun.
Well, that's exactly it. There's that moment when you're looking across the field, and you're hearing, well, you can hear your own archer commanders saying, knock, draw, loose, and then all the arrows come from behind you, flying out at the opposition. Apart from those really annoying archers that loose too soon, and
it's the low poundage,
and you get hit in the back of the head by your own archers. Thankfully, that didn't happen this year. But then, of course, the opposition reply. So then you have exactly that moment. So, listeners, if you can imagine, you're there, you're in a rank, you stand there with all these, soldiers in armour, and your heart's beating, you've already had some engagements. A big volley of arrows fly over the top of your head into the opposition. Some of the opposition get hit and may fall to the floor, to simulate they've been killed. And then you can see the other archers basically knocking their arrows, drawing up at 45-degree angle, loose, and suddenly, boom, you've got that silent rain of arrows, hundreds of them in the air, heading straight towards you. And you do have that moment, like you just said. You kind of like look up, see this huge bank of arrows coming towards you, and they go, right, face down. And then just wait for them to go. Dunk, 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 dunk,
internal monologue. Well, this is how my day is going.
Head down and just wait for them to go and bounce off your helmet or whatever it is.
A lot of the time, you do get some very close ones.
You do, and then, of course, as reenactors on the field and taking care, you have to fight and try not to step on the arrows and let the archers.
Unfortunately, it's pretty much inevitable that you're going to step on one at some point.
Some will get broken, and of course, especially if you're getting pushed back.
Yeah.
Because you'll be told by the marshals, okay, what's going to happen now is you're going to get charged, and then you're going to be pushed back, and if you're getting pushed back, you can't see what's behind you, and you're too busy fighting in front of you, and so unfortunately, arrows do get broken. But that's why I've always liked fighting at the far end.
Yeah.
Because you have a good ruck in the fight, but you're away from the public, so you get the benefit of the arrows, which down the front of the field you don't get as a combatant.
That's where all the posh people do their business.
The posh people. That's all the lords down there, all the shinies. That's it. Not us rusty old mercenaries. Anyway, so the battle absolutely superb. So
that's amazing.
For the general public, if you've been to the Tewkesbury Medieval Festival, highly recommend it. The battle is a big high for the day. And thankfully this year didn't have rain issues or anything like that.
Well, you say that on the plastic camp, I think it was after the battle.
It was after we managed to get back.
Yeah.
After we'd left the field.
Managed to de-kit.
Get all the squires were doing their bit, because we have squires that help us to get all the kit off, because once you're in the armour.
Again, growing up, that was the thing I was very kind of on top of
being a squire,
and that's when it comes to now that I'm just so used to putting armour on. I just think it's faster for me to put it on myself.
Yeah, this is fine, but there are certain buckles like round the back and stuff you just can't get to, and it's like behind your legs when you've got your cuisse on your leg armour and your greaves and everything,
fun name.
And you've got to get them all unbuckled, and it's like the thing is when you're getting ready for muster, it's all going on slowly. And you're acclimatising to the heat, because us reenactors are like mental. Yeah, what they say, mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. You're talking, it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and baking hot sunshine, 30 degrees, and you're wearing more gear than you would wear in the middle of winter. So. And then you're going to go fighting it.
Yeah.
So by the time you get back and you've literally been out there fighting, and then you come back across the field and marched your way back to your encampment, you're literally soaking with sweat. You're absolutely shattered. You've got a big high. Your adrenaline's up. Smile on your face.
You've got enough energy in the tank just to get back to camp.
At that point, you get back to camp and it's like, Squire, because you just want squireage. I need squireage. Get me out of this stuff. Get me gauntlets off. Get me unbuckled. Get the helmet off. There's trouble at the moment because I've got a really big beard at the moment. I can't do my strap up because I'm just literally strapping my beard.
I mean, it was kind of resting in your bever.
My bever is there, and bless Sarah down there. Sarah, you're a diamond. She's trying to stuff my beard into my bever.
He was pouring out.
Sticking his big ginger beard pouring out my bever.
Talking of bevers, that kind of brings me back to a story that you have about a production you actually worked on.
Oh yes, I recall that one. I think you're referring to the Hollow Crown.
That is correct.
I think they had 2 series, Hollow Crown 1 and Hollow Crown 2, which was Shakespearean, and we were there with one of the lead characters where his uncle rides into camp and we're all men at arms waiting on the eve of battle. And don't quote me on the Shakespearean, but anyway, I think it's the prince. No, not the prince. It's whoever. Okay, it's all a long time ago. But anyway, he says, "Ah, uncle, what news dost thou have?" or something like that, in that kind of lovely Shakespearean way. And this actor gets off his horse and he says, "Ah, I bring you bad news. The prince has decided to join the king for the battle." And it's what it was, to give a bit of background in this, the prince has always been seen as a sort of more of a cowardly person who doesn't want to get involved in fighting. So at the eve of battle, the opposition's army outnumbered the king's army, and so it was looking like, when we come to battle in the morning, we've got the advantage. But the uncle's bringing the bad news that the prince has decided to join the king and bring his men to the battle. And he's given this very Shakespearean speech about how it was if the prince had been lifted by angels onto his war horse and adorned with his battle armour, and about his neck was
It's not just armour.
Yeah, I know, but you have to do it in Shakespeare. About his neck was placed his beaver.
Sorry?
I'm saying that. Okay.
Well, a second take on that, please.
Sorry, what did you just say? And then I went cut, reset, because obviously we're going to do several takes so they can get the best cut. And he comes in and he does all his speech again and says, "And about his neck was placed his beaver."
Now, you say beaver.
And on the third take, I'm thinking, should I put my hand up and actually say, you really should say bever? Because people who have absolutely no idea of what you're talking about are just going to, at this point, imagine that you've got this like battle beaver wrapped around your neck. It was a hilarious moment. I didn't say anything. The filming went ahead, and when it came out, there it was. And if you ever watch that first episode, you can look for when the man says, "And he has his beaver."
Do you remember the actor that was saying that? Was it Jeremy Irons?
No, it wasn't Jeremy Irons.
Okay.
Jeremy Irons was on there because I had a great time defending Jeremy Irons and almost getting trampled.
Yeah,
that
was a really good still.
Yeah, I've got a real nice still of me right next to Jeremy Irons fighting in that battle, absolutely covered in mud and blood. It was great. It was a really good shoot. I really enjoyed it.
Signed copies are available.
Yeah, signed copies are available. Yeah, wrestling in mud and all sorts of stuff we were doing on that one. But yeah, no, I can't remember the actor that did that. You'll have to go back and review it. But yes, funny little point. He had his battle beaver on.
Battle beaver.
But yeah, anyway, so yeah, you get back to camp, you strip all that off. Usually, it's pants and shirt time, isn't it?
It's just that half an hour to an hour of
You say, right,
just chill,
out of the gear.
Chill.
Out of the gear, please pour water all over my head if you can, please.
Yeah.
You just bend over and let the dogs of war loose, loose the dogs of war and pour freezing cold water, or it feels freezing cold, even though it's probably warm.
Probably just lukewarm.
And it's just like, it's the best feeling ever. It's almost like you go through all the effort of gearing up, having your montage. What was gearing up? What do you call it? Gearing up montage.
Suit up montage.
Suit up montage. Suit up. Get all that on. Go off. Battle. Max. I mean, that was it. You were quoting Deadpool when we were on the
Deadpool 2.
Yeah, when we were on the Lancastrian side, because literally we had 16.
Because it was like looking across the field. There's like
so many
40, 50 people, and then you just
and it's like, okay, guys, I think it's the moment for maximum effort.
Don't worry.
Has anybody got a brick?
Get anyone got any more weapons? No. Okay, I'll just use this brick.
I'll just use this brick. Maximum effort. And then you come back to camp, and then that strip down, and then that's that water. It's almost like you kind of like that's the reward.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Go with that, and then it's like and you have that guy. And of course, so for those people who want to go to Tewkesbury, that's kind of a behind the scenes of what it's like to be a reenactor.
Yeah,
fighting in the battle, and but you've still got all the market there.
Yeah.
So you turn out, and they don't charge people to go into Tewkesbury.
Do they not?
No.
I think they take donations.
They take donations. So if you're thinking about going next year, 2024, to the Tewkesbury Medieval Festival, know that you do not have to pay. Mm-hmm. You just turn up at the field, chuck some donations in the bucket, and everything is otherwise it's totally free.
Fun little factoid.
Yep.
It's the 40th anniversary next year.
Yes, it is.
Yes, so apparently it's going to be even bigger than it's ever been before.
Woohoo!
Yay!
Yay!
Hopefully there's more people on the Lancastrian side.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, I've got a sneaking feeling that I think this is the turn of events for us.
Oh no!
I think we've probably ended up being.
We've been ousted.
Ousted from Hastings.
We are the subject of a coup.
We're the well. The thing is, just like my mate BJ was saying that we might have to lose because it's a scripted battle, and let's be honest, what's meant to happen is if you're hitting, even though the Lancastrians lose and you're going to get routed at the end, even if you still know that your side is going to lose because that's the script that's historically correct. If you hit your opponents really well, they're meant to die.
Yeah.
But you know what it's like. At the end, push. Most of the Yorkists become Terminators.
Immortality force fields going
You can
switched on high.
I've had them, like there they are attacking, say, Jed Pascoe next to me, or Ross Brown,
or any of the new faces.
Any of the guys, and they're fighting, and I'm coming along with the pole, I'm going bang, bang in the side.
Nope, nothing. Okay.
Normally the rule is you get 3 good hits, you die.
Yeah.
It's like they're not dying. They're not.
It was. I think it was.
It's okay. It's
guys
fine.
in red and black that kind of
the ones
really padded out the blooming York side. This time.
And. But I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not no hard feelings.
No, of course.
It's just the way it goes.
It's a great community of people.
What we did, just like BJ said, it was give them hell, make them
work for it.
Make them work for it. If we're outnumbered, we're outgunned, but if we're going to die, let's make them
make it epic.
Let's make it epic and make them work.
Were there
there was the epic death at the beginning. Yeah, I remember. Carry on.
No, I was going to say, were there any kind of battle highlights for you? This year.
An odd battle highlight was on the first day when we went for the first engagement, and Dan Girton was there, one of our guys.
I know what you're going to say now.
Dan, if you're listening, you're amazing, man. But we went first engagement, first exchange, and suddenly I hear this terrible blood-curdling scream, and Dan flies backwards out of the Lancastrian ranks onto the floor, covering his head, and it's like suddenly, stop, for about half a dozen people within that area. Yeah. Stop dead. Dan, are you right, man? You're right, because it was like, is he taking a pole arm to the face? What's going on?
Is he actually dying?
Because it was like this most blood-curdling, and he goes, oh, no, I'm just acting. Just acting.
Oh, all right, then go.
So, mate, don't do that now. Do that.
We just started.
Do that at the end. It's like everybody suddenly thought, oh, my God, are we going to have to call on the paramedics?
I mean, poor guy. For like, day one, half his leg falls off.
Dan's arm falls off.
After the battle,
the shoulder come off as well.
After his battle, his kind of chest plate straps broke.
Hanging off.
And then he had to get that fixed for the next day. And then on the next day, his other leg fell off.
The other leg fell off. Yes. Hopefully, Dan. Hopefully, all your armour is now fixed for next year, Dan.
Yeah, replace those straps.
Yeah. So that was kind of a fun highlight. Sudden induced panic because we thought there was a major injury had occurred, and they said, "No, I'm just acting."
Now, for me, one of the highlights. Do you remember when we did a boar snout?
Yes.
I think that was on the second day.
That was on the second day.
Now that was okay, but we really needed more people to kind of make a bigger impact on that.
It works better if you got shields.
A lot of shields.
A lot of shields.
We did not have many shields.
We had one
if
shield.
any, one at the back, out of the way. No, I'm joking.
That was just one at the front. That was all we could muster.
But it was actually when later on in the battle we got the York side, Hastings, did the same thing.
Oh, they would try to, yeah.
And, I mean, they had the numbers.
Oh, yeah, there was a big bill block, wasn't
but it did not work for them that well.
Well, did you know they got dispersed by the marshal? Oh. They were all in a big bill box. They thought they were like clubbed, get together into a block and come at us.
Yeah.
And then just as they were going to advance, they were told to get back into line. They had to get back
they came at us. There was a big number of them.
I think they reformed as they started to charge.
And I think they had that pitchfork at the front.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, because there were so many of them, we basically just folded
Around
them, and they basically tumbled over each other.
Yeah,
and the guy at the front just completely face planted, followed by everyone behind.
If you get a block come at you,
I was like, fair enough.
All you can do is peel around the sides and poke them from the sides. You know, although one of the reenactment rules, I don't know if the rules have changed since COVID, but it was always you don't go behind the lines and attack people from behind.
Yeah.
And I was halfway through a fight with a couple of guys with pole arms, and then my brain suddenly clocked that I was getting stabbed in the back. And so I stopped, and there's a guy with a glaive behind me. Literally, he's come all the way around the back, and he's like stabbing me in the back.
Yeah,
And I'm thinking, I don't really think that I can. In reality, yes, but we're not meant to be stabbing people.
No, you see, that is how my brain works.
It's because it's mostly an unprotected area, isn't it?
About what's in front of me, but I'm always wary of. I don't want to press in too much that people are going to fold round me and poke me from behind.
Yeah, but we all do the kind of like suicide run where you just go, okay, I'm just going to charge the.
Oh yeah, that brings me to, I think it was basically the end of the second battle on the Sunday.
Just charge the range.
It was literally. I'm facing off against.
I know. I saw you. There was four
or five guys
with pole arms.
With pole arms. It's just like, okay, just me.
And then I clocked you out my corner of my eye just as they literally bowled you over.
Yeah.
And I came in, and then literally the same happened to me about 10 seconds
later.
later.
Literally, like, at one point,
yes,
half staff just charged right into them just to kind of hold them off
as long as possible. And then that's it. Boom, you're over.
I was like, you know what?
Oh, God.
I'm done now.
Yeah, although that had its also downside for me on that one, because I took them afterwards, getting outnumbered, got into that clinch with them.
Yeah.
So your pole arm is basically useless at that point.
Yeah.
And the guy's pulled his dagger, so he's like stabbing me in the shoulder with a dagger, and then the sheer weight of them means that I've gone over, boom, down. But do you remember I was having problems with my leg armour during the battle?
Oh,
my left leg
I recall.
kept slipping down, so the actual knee was below my knee, so I couldn't bend my left leg. So I'm having to like limp. When it's charged, I'm going to have to limp.
That little sway.
Little sway. But what happened was when I got bowled over, my leg armour, I think what it was is the belt wasn't quite tight enough that around my waist. It gone down. They'd sunk. So when I hit the deck and I tried to get up, both my knee joints of the armour were down to my shins because I didn't put my greaves on.
Right.
I had my greaves. The greaves, guys, are the bits that protect your shins. My greaves normally, because they kind of rest on the top of your foot, help to hold the leg armour up.
Yeah.
And I went on the Sunday. I thought I'll leave them off. Yeah, I'll leave them off. Go a bit lighter. And so because the armour had gone down, when I tried to get up, I couldn't get up.
Oh.
So I rolled onto my front, and you can't because you get in a press up position, you can't bend your legs. It's like, can anybody come and help me, please?
Full turtle.
Yes, full turtle. Eventually, a couple of guys came out. I think one was Tina, bless her, and another guy came over and lifted me up into a standing position. It was like, thank goodness.
I think there is going to be some repair work done on my armour because I think I must have got like a pole arm or something to that right hand, and it kind of mostly detached one of my fingers on my gauntlets.
Yeah, I had a pole arm which slid up my shaft. And
good grief!
Good grief! We just got underneath my gauntlet and just give me a bit of a bruised hand, but that's
I think the only other thing that happened was
your
my beaver.
Or your beaver.
My beaver. My battle beaver.
Your battle beaver
became detached and kind of flopped forward.
You had to go and have your battle beaver reattached.
Yes.
So that's great fun and some reminiscence about the battle. But back to the market. Yes, so much on there. So much on there because you've got all the armourers on there. You've got all the traditional obviously clothing and wares and leather workers, and I love the iron workers that do all the camp kitchenware and everything like that.
Wasn't as many kind of stalls this year.
No, it's still big. For people who've never been there before, it's still a big market. But for us old timers,
well, that's the thing. When you've been going so long, you've got quite a lot of the stuff, and it becomes a lot more difficult to find things.
But if you remember when we were at the commanders' meeting, several of the groups that were coming from the continent couldn't make it.
Yes.
They were like stopped and things that they were having issues coming across. I don't know whether it's to do with the Ukraine and things like that. So I know that things like, I think one of Kovex, there's a company called Kovex that do a lot of armour and weapons. They weren't there. They're normally there. So it might be that some of the more continental people couldn't get there.
True.
For whatever issues at this present time. But hopefully that'll change next year.
And going on with the market, we had some displays at various points in time.
Yeah, you got the mummers, the kind of
they were prancing about.
Yeah, they're like basically they're like Morris men.
Yeah,
but these ones are all dressed with black outfits and skull masks and things.
And that was good. They had a dragon as well. That was good.
They have a dragon. That's it. And they were great. And the music was great. And for the entertainment, they have different entertainment in the beer tent during the day.
It was great raving out on the Friday. That was quite good.
Yeah, you had a good time on the Saturday. That would be Friday night.
Yeah,
Friday night in the beer tent. Rain stayed off quite a bit. Again, if you're a reenactor and you're listening and you haven't been to Tewkesbury before, it's invitation only, but if you do manage to get there, then usually on the Saturday night they have a bring and buy sale outside the beer tent.
The second hand.
So,
unfortunately, it was a bit wet.
Yeah, by that time it did start to drizzle a bit, but usually they have a bring and buy sale where people
sometimes you can get some pretty good stuff.
People selling off their armour or weaponry and clothes and things. Food stalls, not a huge varied amount this year.
I'm always going to be partial to the chips.
Yeah, but as I say, because they moved the battle back in 2003 over closer to the town centre, it means it's only a short walk into the town centre where you've got anything from major pubs where you can go and buy steak and chips or whatever you fancy, to kebab shops, Chinese takeaways,
whatever.
So
I think there's a Domino's or something.
The great thing about Tewkesbury Town Centre as well, obviously you can visit the cathedral itself, the abbey, should I say?
Yeah.
And all the people in Tewkesbury get well into it, and they put all banners outside their houses. All the streets are lined with banners.
I think that's all the time, isn't it?
It's. I think they put them out
or is it specifically
for the Battle of Tewkesbury?
Okay, well, I mean that's pretty much the only time we're there.
And you've got the Living History Encampment. You went off to watch the archery competition.
That was a thing. I have partaken in the archery competition before,
but
this year it seemed very kind of small, and they didn't make a big thing on the announcements about it. It was literally just the one target, and they basically had a couple of kind of smaller white targets that they kind of changed throughout the competition, but they just kind of kept themselves to themselves. There wasn't some big announcements like going, oh wow, that was an amazing shot or anything. They just conducted it as they saw fit, really.
I would probably say it was toned down a little bit more this year, but then unless somebody can correct me, this year was the first, or was this the second proper year back? Second, because we couldn't make it last year because we were away. So when I say back, I'm talking about after the COVID shenanigans and lockdowns.
And it was really nice to get back into the fold.
Yeah, it was. It had a feeling of being back with the old crew, back at the good old times. Yeah. And all round fantastic experience.
Definitely.
So for those that are thinking about going and having a full-on weekend medieval experience, we can highly recommend the Battle of Tewkesbury Medieval Festival 2024. Be there or be a Lancastrian. Oh, that's us.
No, please be a Lancastrian.
Yeah, please be a Lancastrian. We need you. That's it.
Okay, so that brings us to a favourite part of the podcast, which is called Quote of the Week. Does anyone have a quote of the week? I know I do. Do you have one?
I do have one, and I was thinking because of the subject material of War of the Roses, I thought I'd go for a quote from that, and this is going to be my quote, okay? It's a quote from a chap called Dan Jones and his book War of the Roses, The Fall of the Plantagenets and the Rise of the Tudors. And the quote is, "Rebels depend on willful gullibility." And I think that stands just as true today with social media and things where people are that gullible.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think that's a quote based on the subject material for this week's podcast. But basically, rebels depend on willful gullibility.
There we are. So, my quote is actually in Latin.
Woo!
Oh, get me.
Get you.
Noli me tangere.
Do you want to say that again?
Noli me tangere.
Okay.
I think I'm pronouncing that right.
And I actually, that's ringing the bell. I think I know where that's from, but you can...
Okay, so Nolly me tangere means touch me not, and that is actually a quote from the gold tags we had to get onto the battlefield this year.
That's right. So for part of the making sure that people get on the battlefield and we don't have some random strangers turning up carrying sharp weapons that come on the
are completely untrained.
You can only get on the battlefield if you have one of these tags.
Yes.
That's handed out, and your commander hands them out to his troops, and they all have these tags on.
And they get it from the commander's meeting.
And it was quite a nice touch.
Yeah.
This year...
touch me not.
Yes. This year it actually had, in Latin, touch me not, even though you're going on there.
Can you pronounce it? Can you remember?
Nolly me tangerine. I don't know.
Nolly me tangere.
Tangerine.
Tangere.
Tangerine. Nolly me tangerine. There you go.
Okay, fair enough.
And with that, we bid thee farewell.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes.
That's a York goodbye from Buzz.
That's a Lancaster from Zak.
A pox on Lancaster.
Wait, we were Lancaster this year.
Yeah, we'll probably be Lancaster
A pox on York.
Yes.
Hastings, mostly on the replacement Hastings.
I'm confused.
There we are.
We'll leave it at that.
We'll fight. We'll fight.
Huzzah!
You can find the Now We Know Show podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music and Apple Podcasts. Check out the Zak Wylde Productions social media pages on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, or visit the Zak Wylde Productions website at www.zakwyldeproductions.com. Please get in contact, we'd love to find out how you're listening to us. So get in touch in the comments and don't forget to check out Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon to become an official ZWP patron today.